This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey everyone, David here, one of the product leads for Google Gemini. If you dream it and describe it, VO3 in Gemini can help you bring it to life as a video. Now with incredible sound effects, background noise, and even dialogue. Try it with the Google AI Pro plan or get the highest access with the Ultra plan. Sign up at gemini.google to get started and show us what you create.
Have the big AI companies finally met their match when it comes to scraping the internet and maybe infringing on someone else's copyright? Well, in this case, I'm going to say probably, because Disney and Universal are suing Midjourney for copyright infringement. And I'll show you the examples here on today's show. This one might look kind of cut and dry. So on today's show, I'm going to tell you what the heck this lawsuit is even about, who I think will win, and how it might not actually be Midjourney that is in the most trouble. It might be you, the user. All right. I'm excited to talk about this one. Disney versus Midjourney, and will Hollywood kill AI? Let's find out. What's going on, y'all? My name is Jordan Wilson, and I'm the host of Everyday AI. Welcome. This is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping us all not just learn what's happening in the world of AI, but how we can leverage it, or maybe not leverage it, to grow our companies and our careers in this case. So if that's what you're trying to do, be the smartest person in AI at your company or your department, you're in the right place. It starts here. This thing's unedited, unscripted. I'm just bringing you what I like to say is the realest thing in artificial intelligence. But if you really want to take it to the next step, you got to go to our website at youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. We're going to be recapping today's show and keeping you up to date with everything else that's happening in the world of AI. And if you didn't know, you can go click that episodes tab or the tracks tab on our website. Go listen to more than 540 episodes sorted by category. No matter what you care about, our website is a free AI university by some of the world's leading experts. Everything's on there. You can watch all the videos, listen to all the podcasts, read everything. It's all for free. So that's where you need to go to level up. But if you're here for the AI news, make sure to just check for that in the newsletter. But let's get straight into it. Is a big AI company finally going to go down in a copyright lawsuit? I think, especially when it comes to text, it can be hard to prove something, right? And there's plenty of lawsuits, and we're going to talk about those in a bit. But this one might be the most cut and dry lawsuits that we've seen to date, at least when it comes to the biggest names. So if you don't know, Midjourney, I would say, is probably one of the biggest names in AI. Yeah, maybe you aren't using it, right? But Midjourney was one of those first AI startups, AI companies that really was riding this wave, right? Before we saw impressive AI image generators from OpenAI, Google, Adobe, and the other household names, it was Midjourney. Midjourney started this AI image craze, even though technically OpenAI might have been first with its DALL-E 2, which was not a great looking model. I do think Midjourney popularized this whole category, the AI photo category, which is becoming the AI video category, which is just becoming the AI entertainment category. You can make the argument Midjourney's the OG, but now they're like, OMG, they might be in a lot of trouble. All right, so let's talk about what's actually happening here. So Disney and Universal have sued Midjourney for making ripoffs. All right. And in the lawsuit that they just filed, the studios just filed, they called Midjourney, this is great language, by the way, a bottomless pit of plagiarism. The old journalist and wordsmith in me had a good chuckle at that. I'm like, that's some good alliteration and a good way to paint a picture. And so let's take a little bit, kind of a breakdown here of what's actually happening. And I am going to be showing some of the visuals on my screen from the actual lawsuit. So, podcast audience, if you want to see that, they're going to be in the newsletter. We're going to be linking to them if you want to see them. But let's talk about what's actually happening here and my hot take. It's Hot Take Tuesday after all. So we do the news Monday, Hot Take Tuesday, and we're doing the Put AI to Work Wednesday kind of thing going on. So here's my hot take. I think this Disney lawsuit could be the first big domino to fall in the generative AI scene. There's bigger lawsuits that I think, like as an example, the New York Times versus OpenAI and Microsoft, there's bigger lawsuits that may take longer and may ultimately be more consequential. We've seen Stability AI, another AI image generating company, in lawsuits. This is the biggest name, and Midjourney could be the biggest domino that falls. And what Disney is asking for, they're essentially saying, hey, this can't go on, right? They're looking ultimately for an injunction against Midjourney. And if that happens, could this be the first domino? Because Midjourney is not the only AI image generator. You can go in and type a simple prompt and get something that, hey, this is copyrighted material. It's based on, maybe something that's, Disney or Pixar or, name, fill in the blank of any, major studio, major, movie series, Marvel, right? DC. There's so many, these big billion and trillion dollar companies that own IP that's kind of just been getting ripped for months or years by some of these AI image generators. The problem is, and here's the hot take coming. No one's going to go after an OpenAI. They want to be friends with OpenAI. No one's going after Microsoft or Google or these other big companies. They don't have the pockets, right? Even though Disney is probably the biggest player, but the studios don't have the pockets to go toe to toe with the biggest guys. So in this case, Midjourney just might be the AI sacrificial lamb and could actually be the first AI domino to fall. Could this impact the rest of the AI creative industry? It could. Do I think it will? I'm not sure, right? This is one of those where I'm actually not sure how it's going to play off, right? Play out. Like as an example, you could say the New York Times versus OpenAI case. That case I think is bigger. The potential ramifications are much higher, but I have a pretty decent idea on how that one's going to turn out. I personally think that the New York Times did not make a strong case. If I'm being honest, the New York Times lawyers do not understand large language models, or at least they didn't when they first filed their report back in December 2023, right? We're pretty far into that case, and I don't think it's going anywhere. And I think OpenAI has already done a pretty good job of, kind of backhanding the New York Times and being like, yeah, that's not how this works. This one with Midjourney is a little cut and dry because the evidence, obviously, visually is hard to argue against. But is Midjourney actually going to be in trouble, or is it going to be you? We covered this last year, and I literally told y'all, and I bring the receipts, especially on Hot Take Tuesday. I told y'all, got to be careful with Midjourney. Yeah, guess what? They changed their terms of service, and they essentially said, hey, if we ever get in trouble for copyright, it's on you, user. It's not on us. They literally say that plain as day. All right, so we're going to be breaking this all down. Let's get into the details. And hey, live stream audience, let me know what you think. I'm honestly curious. Like, what do you all think? Do you think that Midjourney is going to get sued? Do they have a chance to win this lawsuit? Is there any way that they can overcome this when it looks, I'm going to show the example side by side. It looks plain as day. Is this going to have a lasting impact on the generative AI space? All right, let's get into it. Go over some of the details here. All right, so this lawsuit is fresh, just June 11th. Disney and NBC Universal filed a federal lawsuit, and their complaint brands Midjourney as a bottomless plagiarism pit, exploiting iconic characters that are their IP that they have copyright over. And also the Motion Picture Association obviously backs the studios, signaling a united Hollywood front. So let's just say if Universal and Disney win this lawsuit, I would expect most other studios to fall in line, whether it's against Midjourney or other, kind of AI creative startups. Again, I don't think the big companies have too much to worry about right now because their pockets are deeper, right? These studios, they're going after the small fish, right? Because they don't want to go toe to toe with a tech trillionaire company. A lot of times, this is, sometimes who just has deeper pockets, who is going to drown who in legal fees and motions and drag this thing out for a decade or longer. Sometimes that's what this turns into. So I think these lawsuits are going to start going after the like quote unquote small guys, right? Even though they're not small, right? These AI startups that are making hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, but there's a difference between making hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and tens of billions of dollars in revenue. You probably don't want to go against the latter. You're going to pick off the former. So speaking of, so in this report, we saw that Midjourney is reportedly earning about $300 million in subscription revenue, and that is projected to hit $500 million of revenue in 2025. So it's not like Midjourney is some, small, like, two dudes in a basement, like, oh, you can't, poor Midjourney, right? They do say that they're a super small staff, like a dozen or so employees, what they say. So, I mean, if that's the case, like revenue per employee is mind boggling. We did also see that nearly 21 million users generated images in September of 2024, and the studios are seeking damages and nationwide injunction, halting infringing outputs. And let's just be honest here. That's not possible. Right? There would be no way that Midjourney can be like, all right, we're going to keep the service going on, but let's take out all this stuff with, with Universal or Disney or with the Hollywood studios. I don't know how you can undo that, right? I'm sure there's a way to technically do it, but I'm guessing that it would be faster for them to start over versus, trying to weed out what's copyrighted and what's not. Because, there was a smoking gun that their CEO said something earlier, which we're going to get to later in the episode. So here is a actual kind of copy of the lawsuit here. It's 130 pages. I read through about half of it, used a couple AI tools to help me read through the rest. But here's what you need to know if you don't want to read this 130-page lawsuit that was filed in the U.S. District Court of Central District of California. So I'd say kind of 4 big points here. I'm going to bullet point them in our newsletter. If you do want to read that long lawsuit, we're going to be linking it in the newsletter, but we are going to be showing some of the exhibits that the big studios make against Midjourney. So number one, pretty simple here. They say there's a direct creation of copyrighted characters. So they say that Midjourney service directly generates nearly identical images of copyrighted characters like Darth Vader, Minions, and Shrek from simple text prompts. And I showed you guys this before. In Midjourney, this is why it's great having like 1,000 hours or more of like live streams. It's like I showed you, you can even, put in a prompt not asking for copyrighted content and get copyrighted content. Midjourney was kind of, I would say, overzealous in how they did that. But number 2, admitted unauthorized training. So they said that Midjourney CEO admitted that they pull off all the data it can, and they never sought any copyright content holders' consent to copy and exploit their works. So this means that they built that Disney is the studios are alleging that Midjourney built their AI by illegally copying vast amounts of copyrighted material. All right. The next big point that the studios made in their lawsuit is that the AI is that there was infringement without even specific prompts. So the AI will generate copyrighted characters, as an example, Spider-Man, Simpsons, the Minions, even when users give generic prompts that don't specifically name the characters. That's where it's like, you can't really argue against it, because even when users aren't trying to generate copyrighted content, it's like, it's going to happen. And then the 4th biggest point in this lawsuit is that there was a willful disregard and continued infringement because the studios allege that Midjourney has the technical ability to block infringing content, which they use for other filters such as nudity or violence, and that the studios did send Midjourney a cease and desist letter, but that they reportedly refused to implement any copyright protections. Instead, released what they called a new and improved version of their service that continued to generate what the studio said were infringing images. So yeah, it's a very long lawsuit, and there's a lot of examples that literally show side by side. But for our audience here, I'll show you one or two very quick examples. So, this one in the lawsuit, the studios say in response to the prompt Stormtrooper battle scene movie still screen cap, Midjourney accessed the data about Disney's copyrighted work that is stored by the image service and then reproduced, publicly displayed, and made available for download an image output that copies Disney's Stormtroopers as shown in this screenshot. And then on the right side of the lawsuit, they include two pieces of Disney's copyrighted characters in the Stormtroopers from Star Wars. And then on the left side, it is the Midjourney output, which is better, right? It's kind of funny. The Midjourney visually looks way better than Disney's, copyrighted characters that they included. I don't know if that was intentional or not. It's also the timing on this is actually kind of funny because yes, this lawsuit technically just dropped, but it's been right around the same time that if anyone has seen this, the kind of viral, Stormtrooper vloggers have just taken over social media. I don't know this. I haven't seen it, I haven't seen this personally, on my feed because I'm not on social media aside from LinkedIn. But I've seen a lot of stories, and we've covered this in our newsletter, that these essentially, using these tools to first create an AI image and then going image to video. And now that there's, VO3 and all of these other tools that you can use to generate audio. So you're seeing it's a little different because you can use essentially just any AI image generator with the Stormtroopers because they have a helmet and you can't see their mouths. So people are making all of these first person Stormtrooper vlogs that are getting millions of views online. So it's kind of ironic, I guess, that those Stormtrooper AI vlogs are blowing up right at the same time as this lawsuit. And one of the specific things that the studios are pointing out in their examples is Stormtroopers. Obviously, one of the biggest, kind of IP characters, and probably one of the most recognizable in the world, regardless of whether you're a 70-year-old or a, 10-year-old. It's probably one of the most recognizable pieces of intellectual property by the studios there. So there's a smoking gun in this. And are you to blame? Are we to blame? Who's actually going to get in trouble? All right. I'm going to answer those questions here in just a second after a word from our sponsors.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey everyone, David here, one of the product leads for Google Gemini. Check out VO3, our state-of-the-art AI video generation model in the Gemini app, which lets you create high-quality 8-second videos with native audio generation. Try it with the Google AI Pro plan or get the highest access with the Ultra plan. Sign up at gemini.google to get started and show us what you create.
All right, so what is this smoking gun, and is Midjourney just trying to pass the blame to users? So here's the smoking gun. So in a 2022 interview, Midjourney CEO essentially admitted that they do a big scrape of the entire internet and essentially acknowledged that it is impossible for them to be tracking permissions for hundreds of millions of scraped images, which I didn't even know there's that many scraped images. Also, like I said, you can just prompt Darth Vader and it will return a flawless copyrighted design in seconds, right? And you can even describe Darth Vader without using the word Star Wars or Darth Vader, and it's very possible you would get Darth Vader. So essentially, it's already been said in an interview that Midjourney essentially just scrapes the internet. Guess what's on the internet? Mainly just copyrighted material, right? There's very few things that are, as an example, Creative Commons on the internet. I would venture to guess that it's like a fraction of 1% in terms of visuals that are on the internet that are actually technically free and available to scrape. And even in those cases, you would have to do so with attribution. But that's just not how these AI image models work. They don't attribute, right? So the argument from a lot of the AI image generators is, well, we don't, ever reproduce anything one to one, right? It's essentially a mirror of society, and we put together every visual that's ever been made in a pot, and you ask for something, and something that pops out is actually unique. It's never a one to one copy. But what goes into the pot? Copyrighted ingredients, right? This has always been the not so secret big elephant in the room, is like, what's going to happen when this finally goes to court, and is there going to be a gavel that's ever against an AI company? And maybe this is one of them, because when you look at the evidence side by side, it's hard to argue, right? Even text. On the text side, if you ask a large language model for specific lyrics from a song, a lot of times it won't give it to you for copyright reasons. You could ask for a specific famous recipe, right? Maybe there's a cook that has a TV show and they're known for a recipe. You ask for it, it's not going to give it to you, right? If you ask for all, an excerpt from, a copyrighted book, might not give it to you verbatim, right? It might change some things. So even on the text side, right, there's a lot of gray area, and probably more ways around this. And I think it's easier to look at the text side and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this seems unique, right? When you look at an image side by side, you're like, no, that seems like a blatant copy, right? So the studios say that they've been ignored and they've sent warnings. So a 2023 cease and desist letter that the studios demanded that Midjourney take them down, and the studio said that Midjourney ignored them. And they alleged that then the company just released a new, higher quality version despite legal pressure. And also in the lawsuit, it shows that even on Midjourney's Explore page, which is kind of like a version of their homepage, it was still showcasing Disney fan art to users, allegedly, even after this, cease and desist letter. So it's not exactly like Midjourney was trying to run away from this, right? It's just like, it's there. It was there the whole time. It's still there. That's not still there, but you can still very easily go find this content, right? It's not like, this lawsuit dropped last week and now it's scrubbed from the website or from their servers. You can't. All right. So who's actually to blame? All right. So I'm a dork, and I'm obviously a former investigative reporter. So I obviously went on and found every single version of Midjourney's terms of service that I could find on archive.org, looked at them line by line, and saw that obviously their terms have changed drastically, especially as Midjourney became a very popular tool. But it was actually in early 2024 that their terms of service took a very unuser-friendly, abrupt halt. So essentially, in this updated terms of service from early 2024, where they're saying, yeah, copyright claims, that's on you, user. That's not on Midjourney. And there's a clause in there that warns that violators will pay legal fees not coming from Midjourney's wallet. And the terms of service also bans IP infringement outright, and it threatens lawsuit and permanent bans. Guess what? All right, I'm gonna skip ahead. Don't be shocked, because we warned you. Okay, literally in January of 2024, right after these new terms of service came out, we did an entire episode on this. All right, and here's, among other things, what those new terms actually said. They say, you are responsible for your use of the service being Midjourney. If you harm someone else or get into a dispute with someone else, we will not be involved. To the extent permitted by law, you will indemnify and hold us harmless, our affiliates and our personnel, from and against any costs, losses, liabilities, and expenses, including attorney fees, from third-party claims arising out of or relating to your use of the services and assets, or any violation of these terms. So Midjourney's essentially saying, like, hey, if you get in trouble, it's on you. It's in our terms. We're not going to help you. It's on you, right? These are not normal terms for an AI company. And that's literally why we had to go listen to episode 180 back in January of 2024. I actually pulled the transcript, and here's what I told you 18 months ago. I said, talking about these new terms of service, I said that becomes especially problematic when we start to see AI image generators like this create highly replicated, almost pixel for pixel, perfect duplications from movies. And then I said, you might want to relook at your use of Midjourney. Midjourney's new terms of service, a little troubling. And then later I go on to say, I don't know if you understand what's going on here. And I also said, I don't know if our team at Everyday AI can continue to use Midjourney with these terms. There's a reason why I haven't been covering Midjourney hardly at all in the past year and a half. And these new terms of service, that's one of the reasons why, right? Essentially, they're passing all blame, 100% blame to the users, which like I said, that is not normal. That is not normal. But that's also the risk that you take if you don't read the fine lines. That's also, y'all, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about oh my gosh, what's going on? Anytime something like this happens, we obviously cover it on the show. This is why you need to be tuning in every single day, because if you're trying to grow your company and career, you can't always be worried about what's in the fine print of all these services. What's changing? How does this impact me? That's what we do. That's what we do. So, just shouting ourselves out because a year and a half ago, we told you about this, right? Yes, I went back and read going all the way back to 2022, 2023, 24, and today's terms of service to see the differences and to see how it shifts. And essentially, in early 2024, Midjourney just said, nope. Hey, if there's ever a lawsuit, if there's ever any IP, anything, it's on you. But I don't know if that's going to work, because even when, as the lawsuit pointed out, number 4, number 3, infringement without specific prompts. These are just 4 of the bullet points that I pulled out of this. These weren't bullet points from the actual 130 plus page complaint. So these are 4 of the bullet points I pulled out. But the third one that I said was most important is infringement without specific prompts. So the AI generates copyrighted characters even when users give generic prompts that don't specifically name the character. So that's what I'm saying. I think Midjourney is going to try to pass the blame, right? Because it's in their terms, and they're going to be like, well, it's in the terms. But then, users are going to be like, yo, what happened even all these times? I just said, give me a superhero, and they didn't name anyone by names. And then if it gives them all of DC and Marvel, and then they start using that, I don't know, in their marketing or something. And they're like, I didn't ask for copyrighted content. You gave it to me. So it's going to be a lot of finger pointing, much like that, that Spider-Man meme where it's like Midjourney terms of service, user, everyone's pointing at each other. So who's ultimately going to take the blame here? But I do want to quickly talk about these other copyright battles, because these aren't the only ones, right? So we've seen the Getty images versus Stability AI. Right now, the judge is allowing the New York Times' lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft. That's going to be one to watch. And there's been dozens of, fairly high profile individual artists or groups that are filing over and over fresh federal infringement claims. But I think this is the big, when you think about who's the biggest name in entertainment, it's got to be Disney, right? They've got everything under their lineup. They're the biggest. They are entertainment, right? So the biggest name in entertainment going against what appears to be one of the easiest targets, and at least on paper, one of the most blatant, apparent violators, right? I showed you. Go look side by side. I've experienced it myself. There's a reason we stopped using Midjourney. And this is not just happening in movies, it's happening in other places. As an example, music publishers, but they're, I think, ahead of the curve in terms of where this kind of fight is right now with Hollywood studios and Midjourney. And also, it is worth noting, Midjourney did just release a video mode. It's not good yet, but I'm sure it's going to start to become really good. But on the music side, record labels have previously launched lawsuits against Suno and Udio last year, but now they're actually close to licensing agreements. So maybe that's what could happen here. I don't think necessarily, because I think when you're starting to talk about a AI startup that's making hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, I don't know. I don't know. So what's ultimately going to happen, and here's what each side is saying. Midjourney claims that their training and outputs are transformative fair use, and the actual copyright law and fair use is very much up for debate, like not just here in the US, but worldwide. AI companies are challenging it. They're saying, copyright law is antiquated. And they're saying, this is fair use. When we, never spit something out verbatim one to one, that's fair use. So that's the argument, anyways, regardless of if you believe in that or not. The studios are seeking financial damages, undisclosed amounts, and a permanent injunction to stop Midjourney from infringing on their copyright, which I don't think is possible, even though the studios are saying, like, yeah, it's totally possible. I don't think it's possible. And a studio victory would force these huge model purges, retraining, and I don't know if this is ruled against Midjourney. I don't know if Midjourney makes it out. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I think if nothing else, that could be the biggest domino to fall, right? Because I would guess other studios are going to get on board suing other smaller AI image generator companies, because at that point, the precedent is there. And at that point, is Hollywood killing AI? Maybe not. But if this is the first domino and it does fall in the studio's favor, they're at least going to be shooting them down one by one. All right. I hope this episode was helpful to get you caught up on what's actually happening and how it might impact your company, your career, especially if you're in the creative field. You got to keep an eye on this, and we're going to be doing that for you. When there's updates, we're going to be covering them. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please go to youreverydayai.com, sign up for the free daily newsletter. Hope this Hot Take Tuesday was a good one for you. Please join us tomorrow. We're going to be doing our new segment, Putting AI to Work, on Wednesdays. It's a very good one. You're not going to want to miss it. So thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you back tomorrow for that, and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey everyone, David here, one of the product leads for Google Gemini. If you dream it and describe it, VO3 in Gemini can help you bring it to life as a video. Now with incredible sound effects, background noise, and even dialogue. Try it with the Google AI Pro plan or get the highest access with the Ultra plan. Sign up at gemini.google to get started and show us what you create.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.